everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you guys are doing great. It has been a bit of a time since I have been on here, and I hope you guys have had a wonderful summer. I have really spent the summer stepping away from all social media and the podcast and everything just to give some space to breathe and really focus in on honing some alone time and some reflection time and some stability pieces to really be prepared for the moment that we are in right now. And I think that time is extremely important whenever those moments come up where I'm guided to just step back and rest. It's always for a reason. And I think we are on the precipice of something really big starting to unfold for us collectively right now. And you can feel it. You can feel it. You can see it. You can sense it. It really is coming out in a different form right now. And I just got on Substack because I feel as though my voice is needing some real clarity time. It's different in the written word than it is of me speaking. Everything has a little bit of a different resonance to it. And with writing, I can really work on forming my words and forming my thought forms. Where when I come on to the podcast, it's very much a free flow of what's off the top of my head at the time. And they're both very important, but they're different mediums for sure. But I wanted to really talk about what I have just put out on Substack, because I think we're at a moment right now as a humanity where we're starting to see a big, I don't want to call it a divide, but we're starting to see some cracks in the foundation. And it's been interesting to see how certain events seem to crack something open in the collective psyche. And it's an interesting thing to look at from the perspective of how are these events formed? And are they formed in a way that is meant to really shake us awake? I had a really rough week the previous week leading up to all of these big events that have been unfolding over the course of the last week, especially globally. And something really ruptured inside of me. And I had a lot of tears coming out. And I didn't really understand exactly where they came from. I had been dealing with some personal stuff that had stemmed from my childhood that had started to come up. But I'm not much of a crier. And anybody who knows me well knows that I'm more of a frustrated crier. When I get really frustrated, I cry because I tend to analyze my emotions. And I tend to explode when I'm at a breaking point, but it's not like this type of crying where it was deeply, I don't know, it was visceral. It was definitely a feeling of primordial in its nature. And I understood after the fact that this was really intertwined with the collective framework of the shadows that are coming up to the surface. And it was interesting because I realized in that moment that I was being prepared to unload my personal pain for what was going to start to spill out in the collective. And, it's interesting because you never know exactly how these things are being orchestrated, right? If you want to call it astrological shifts, or you want to call it ascension symptoms, or you want to call it, the split of new earth, or whatever, the key word is of the week, there's no denying that as human beings, we are being pushed into a very uncomfortable territory. And the reason I think we're being pushed so hard right now is to really start to see the polarity of how we're living and how we're treating ourselves and how we're treating each other. And it's these moments that come up that feel like pressure cooker moments. And it feels as though that heat is continuing to build until something cracks us wide open in order to surrender to the change. The reason change is so difficult and the reason the surrendering is so difficult for so many people is because we are very much conditioned from the moment we take our first breath, the moment we come into a human form, that we have this lens in which we see the world. In our formative years, our childhood years are very crucial in helping us to shape that perspective. Everybody who's around us, whether it's family members or it's teachers or it's friends or neighbors or whoever it is, they're very critical members of the group that helps to create that fabric of our reality. And it also creates a baseline for what feels very normal and very comfortable for each of us. And that's the baseline. We always come from that baseline lens. And as a child, you don't understand necessarily if that baseline is normal, if it's healthy. We don't really know exactly what that looks like, but we always come back to that. That is the lens in which we kind of react and view the world. So depending on how we're raised, right? If we're raised with parents that are very fearful of the world, or we're raised in a household that's very chaotic, all of that impacts how we're going to react to the world. So as long as things are going okay and status quo and everything is exactly the way it's always been, we feel safe. We feel really good. We feel like everything's easygoing, right? But as soon as our safety net gets poked, as soon as there is a shaking of that safety net, that's when we begin to feel very unstable. And especially when we have had a baseline filled with trauma or distorted conditioning or abuse in that baseline. The things that are going on in the world actually seem much bigger because it's pushing up against something that we are already overtaxed about. And that happened very early in our lives. So when these major events happen, it really begins to put cracks in our long-held belief systems. And that puts us into a disruptive void. And it is a very uncomfortable space to be because we are between our comfortable patterning of living our day-to-day life, and we are faced with the unknown. We are faced with something that requires us to have new understanding and may require us to change course from our very comfortable everyday routines. And that is a place that creates chaos. It creates a unknowing anxiety in a lot of us. And I always say there's two types of people. There's people who move towards faith. They don't know necessarily what's going to be in front of them, but they continue to move forward. And then there are those who want to cling to our belief systems. We want to cling to the old way of doing things in our comfort zone. And that's where we hit a lot of resistance. If I look at it just from the energetic perspective, it's almost as though these events create a splintering of our soul. And when we are fragmented in any way, when the energy field gets fragmented or gets tears or holes within the energy field, we are much more susceptible to interference coming in from outside sources. And that creates an amplification unsteadiness. And that is much easier at that point to knock us off center. I have been talking a lot about holding the center. I have been talking a lot about trying to zoom out and look at things from the 50,000 foot view versus getting mired into the disruption. And it's caused a little bit of backlash for me saying this because it feels to me as though holding the center means that you're not choosing a side. And it's not that you don't have an opinion necessarily about that, but it's energetically you're holding the center because everything else is so unstable. And if you don't have certain people holding the center and holding things stable, then everything turns upside down. And so there are people who are here to hold the center. And I feel like I am one of those people that are here to hold the center. And a lot of people who are on the path of self-discovery, of doing the deeper work, of trying to look at things from a different perspective, whether you want to call that a consciousness journey, if you want to call that an ascension journey, whatever you want to call it, there are those of us who are really being tested in our mastery of our emotions, our mastery of our faith, our mastery of being able to be the steady in the storm. And all of the disruption and all the bombarding of breaking news and this is so important. And how dare you say this and pointing fingers at people and trying to tear people down. All of that stuff is meant to splinter us. And it's meant to bombard your nervous system so that you stay in a constant state of fight or flight. And when you're able to pull out of that, when you're able to look at things from that higher perspective and you're able to not get mired into it, and you're able to hold the center, that is mastery. In these times of great change, that is mastery. And that is what I'm talking about. So as we continue to move through this year and into next year and into the next year, we are going to see more of these disruptive events taking place. And these are meant to be disruptors. I call them consciousness shifters. And the reason being is because these events feel like they can unlock parts of us that we never knew needed to be broken open. And what it happens is it unlocks a piece of our unconscious behaviors that need to be activated so we can evolve as human beings. If you go back to Dolores Cannon teachings, she talks a lot about this being the earth school, that souls come to earth in order to have the most difficult path in most cases in order to evolve and in order to grow at the soul level. This is a place of duality. This is a place of emotional mastery. It's very easy to have the emotions take over. And this is where we come to learn how to maneuver through those emotional ups and downs. We are also in a physical body, which at a soul level, you don't always have that. So, these events are helping to evolve us as human beings. And whether they're orchestrated from a higher power or they are simply the act of our own collective yearning for that expansion, it's something that shakes us very deeply. And in the past few years, we have seen an increase of these events happening that are forcing us to look deeper at our patterns of behavior as a humanity. You can take George Floyd, you can take the Ukraine-Russia conflict, you can take the situation with Gaza that's going on, you can take Luigi Mangione that happened in the US, you can take the Charlie Kirk piece. Any of these events are major consciousness shifters. And I believe that they are here to help us evolve at the deepest levels. So, why is it that these are happening so rapidly now? I don't think there's any surprise that our interconnectedness as a humanity is, whether we are conscious of it or not, is very important. We are all energetically connected. But I also think because of that connectivity and the age of digital connectivity, the infiltration of the 24-hour news cycle, social media, and I think our desire as humans to look at distortion as a way to make ourselves feel better about our own choices. This is the rise of reality TV, right? I was just watching the documentary that Charlie Sheen did. And, I don't know if any of you remember when he had this huge breakdown and he went on a national tour and he went on television shows and nobody could look away from this, right? That's what I'm talking about. It's like when you see somebody else in this crazy state and you can look at it, it makes you feel better about your own life. And I think we fuel that type of behavior in order for us to do that. But we are not designed to be bombarded with a constant barrage of tragedy. In the past, we may have had one big event during our entire lifetime in previous generations where we would have had some major event. Now it's a daily occurrence and it's leaving our systems in that constant state of fight or flight. And what I'm seeing happening, especially the work that I'm doing behind the scenes, the unseen world, the energetic world, is that these events are causing crack points and they're showing the inverted agendas. They're exposing the systems that have appeared to keep us safe as nothing more than something that has been built to keep us dependent and controlled. And these inverted agendas, this inverted energy, is really the thing that's coming to the surface more than anything else. And that is why I think it feels so big to all of us, is because that's the piece that a lot of us are starting to catch on to. Personally, I don't subscribe to any structure that tells you what to do. And I really, truly believe that everyone has to come to their own conclusion in their own time to be able to understand what's going on. There's been many times in the past where people have come to me for advice, or I've offered advice, or I've offered perspective on things that are happening, and they're just not in a place to accept that. And so I'm actually have really stepped back in doing any of that, because I feel like people have to evolve at their own pace and they have to come to their own realization. It may never be in this lifetime. It may be lifetimes down the road or never. And that's okay. But I truly do believe that these global events that we're seeing are destabilizing us so that we as a collective can get there faster. And this is forcing us to go through our own death process, the death of our identity, the death of our belief systems. And it's really forcing us to look at our worldview in a different way. And sometimes I believe that Growth requires disruption, and evolution requires crisis. What I've been shown a lot as I've been working in the unseen realms is that these inverted constructs have been the state of affairs for far too long. There has been locations that have been hijacked, there's been systems that have been hijacked, and there has been this inversion that has been built on pain and suffering and enslavement. And what's going on right now behind the scenes is that there is a push out of these strongholds. And we have to change course in order for us to remember that we are all one, that we are all connected, that we are all here as souls to evolve and grow. But I will tell you, the path forward is not going to be easy. It is going to be contentious. It's going to be disruptive, because anything that has built their systems and their power on an inverted structure are going to grasp to keep control of what they've built. And this battle that we see, a lot of people talk about spiritual warfare, a lot of people talk about real war, civil war potentially happening. But the war isn't over land or money. It's over our consciousness. If you look back in history, you can see that every system of control has relied on the same fundamental strategy. It's to keep people disconnected from their inner knowing. It is to make you doubt yourself. It is to make you doubt and mistrust other people. It is to look outside of yourself for a savior or a hero or a government to keep you safe. And when you're cut off from your ability to decipher things, to have discernment, to be able to listen to your own gut and what it's telling you, you are much easier to control and you're much easier to manipulate. And you definitely become way more dependent on that external authority to guide your personal beliefs. And this is why consciousness and sovereignty feel so threatening to these established power structures. Because when you know yourself and trust yourself so deeply, you know and you trust your intuition so deeply, you don't have to ask anybody for what to do because you know exactly what to do. That means that no system can control you. You know exactly who you are and what you are here to do, and you know exactly what's the right move for you. But here's the thing, and here's what inverted systems do not count on. When you are conscious, when you are fully awake, you can't be put back to sleep. And when there's enough people who are conscious and awake, that creates a movement. And then that creates a shift in the collective in such a way that there's no reversing it. There's some people who are very in tune who have been talking about the percentage of people in the collective who have gotten enough awakening and consciousness that it has shifted enough people to be able to put us in a trajectory of a different path. And I truly do believe that we are on that path. But I think the true test is going to come from the next few years. We're in a wormhole right now because we're in eclipse season. But I think over the next year or two, It's about how many people are going to be able to stay the course. And I think that's where the mastery piece comes in, because there's enough of you who have done enough work, who have the tools in the toolbox, who've trekked up enough of the mountain to understand that you can make the rest of the journey. But there's some people that are going to get up halfway up the mountain and they're going to bow out because it's going to feel too much, too overwhelming, and they're going to want to give up. But this is why your spiritual and personal growth is so critical. We have got to turn inward to examine our own selves and our own biases and our own reactions to situations, because we are responsible for everything we do. Each person is fully responsible for themselves, their reaction to things, how they look at the world, how they discern every situation. That is all on you. And the more we turn inward, the more we do the self-examination, the more we stay focused on our reaction to things, then that can spill over and assist others and help them evolve as well. The more of us that are saying, hold the center, don't react, don't get involved, don't point fingers, stop blaming each other, turn inward. And the more people who do that, the more we shift the path forward. And this is the era that we're in. Do we want to continue to move forward with these structures that are only serving a certain handful of people? Do we want to continue to give our power away? And remember, all of these structures were built by human beings. They were all thought up by human beings. They were all built by human beings. That means that you have the ability, the creativity, the know-how to bring something new to the forefront. And it's going to take every single one of us to do that, to make the actual changes that we need to be making. So when we look at these events that are happening, I would invite you to actually look at this a little bit of a different way. What feels like things are falling apart, when it feels like things are just breaking and shattering and erupting, it's not that it's a breakdown. It's creating a breakthrough for all of us. Because in my own personal experience, this was a necessary cracking open to go deeper into my own authority. I was having to rework the way that I set boundaries with people who were very close to me. And these are behaviors that I have learned since I took my first breath. But I also know that we as a collective, we have forgotten really why we're here. And we are mourning. We're mourning a lot of stuff. But simultaneously, we're able to celebrate what we're becoming. And remember that it's a weird thing, but the death and rebirth cycle is part of our natural evolution. It's something that happens every single day. And we simultaneously destroy and create at the same time. And we've got to let something go first in order to create something new. And this is part of why we're in the eclipse cycle. These eclipse cycles are so important because they are forcing us to release something that no longer serves us in order to make the room for creating something brand new. And the brand new part of it, again, can be scary because it's the unknown. But it's also exhilarating, again, if we have faith as we move forward. And I think it's also very important to remind ourselves that we're not victims in these times. We are participants in one of the greatest evolutionary leaps in human history. And believe it or not, I usually say this, we signed up to do this. We signed up to be here at this time. And every single shift that is being presented to us is helping us remember who we really are. We are very powerful beings who are capable of creating the world that works for everybody. And it's rooted in love and authenticity and inclusion. So maybe that is exactly what we came here to do. Who knows? But let's embrace it as an adventure. Let's look at it in a way that helps us to really get to the heart of who you are. And let's try and bring more stability and love as we do it. You know, it was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine about some of the things that I really want to focus on, like keeping still and keeping balanced. And I said, it's not that sexy. I can talk about a lot of other things that are way more sexy and things I'm doing at this time, but I don't want to create more disruption. I really don't. I want to be that anchor in the storm, and I want to be that force of stability. And one thing that keeps being shown to me over and over and over again, especially when I'm in meditation, is I keep being shown the lotus flower sitting on a lily pad in a still pond. And that's really the vision I keep holding, is that vision. That grounded presence, that steadiness, that ability to hold the center while everything around us crumbles. So let's keep that vision. And if you're wondering, gosh, how do I navigate this? What are some things that I can do to navigate through this? Here's a couple of recommendations. If you have something that comes in that really triggers you, try and wait 24 hours before you do anything. Try and pause, take a step back, go inward, reflect on what's happening before you have any reaction to it. This puts you in the neutral space. This puts you in the void. And this will be able to give you a lot more clarity about what is going on before you react to it. Another thing is make sure you've got good boundaries and energetic protection before you're consuming any sort of news or external information coming at you. If you feel destabilized about what's going on, there's 3 questions you can ask yourself. Question number 1, what is this showing me about myself? Question number 2, how can I respond from love rather than fear? And question number 3, what would my highest self do in this situation? Another thing you can do is be very conscious about how much information you're taking in. I'm leaving my phone actually in another room as I sleep, so I have absolutely no distractions. I'm trying to put it in the room about 8 o'clock and not touch it after 8 o'clock, so I don't consume anything else. And that way I can have a good night's sleep. Also, choose things that are going to bring more joy into your life. Try and balance out the heavy content with something more fun. I'm grabbing to a lot more comedy shows. I noticed I don't really want to watch anything super dramatic. Life's already that way. The world's already that way. So something to make me laugh is really important right now. Get outside. Go put your feet in the grass. Go hug a tree. Go get sunshine on your face. Make sure you are out in nature. That's the best medicine. And then look for other people who are going through something. Look for community. Look for groups that you can join that are going to help you navigate through these times of change. We all really need each other right now. We also need people who are having similar experiences, maybe on a similar journey to you. Look for expanders, look for people who have gone through situations that help to reflect that back to you, who can be expanders for you on your own journey. They've done something and they've gotten through it. They can be a source of inspiration, and a sounding board in some ways for you to be able to navigate through these times for sure. And if you're looking for more support, I have a Patreon community called Light Alchemy Collective with my friend Heather Jade Fisher Page. We are really focused on giving tools and techniques to help you navigate through these times. It's not about ascending out, it's not about doing things that are going to get you out of alignment. It's about how do you embody things more? How do you stay grounded in these times of change? How do you integrate energies that are shifting around you? This month, especially, we're focusing on how do you integrate different energies that we're being bombarded with right now, whether it's solar flares or you're getting a download or you're getting anything that's happening. How can you really ground that in, and how can you embody that at this time? So check that out, Light Alchemy Collective. I'll put it in the show notes as well. But first and foremost, and the most important thing, take care of yourselves. Eat food that's nourishing, drink plenty of water, get sunshine on your face, hug another person, and just try and take care of you the best way that you know how. Take care.